Hello, my name is Ben Guterson, and we are here with some individuals to talk today about the issue and problems surrounding climate change. We're very pleased to have with us today Zoe, we have Adib, we have Ryan, and we have Quinn. And in order to frame up the issue overall, we're actually going to spend a few minutes at the outset watching a video from the Climate Action Summit in 2019, where Greta Thunberg discusses some of her thoughts around climate change and what it might mean to the future of our world. So we'll watch that video.
Greta, your first climate strike was a lonely event a little over a year ago, and in the intervening time you have sparked the interest of millions, literally, of children around the globe demanding action for climate change. What's your message to world leaders today?
My message is that we'll be watching you. This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words, and yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering, people are dying, entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you? For more than 30 years, the science has been crystal clear. How dare you continue to look away and come here saying that you're doing enough when the politics and solutions needed are still nowhere in sight? You say you hear us and that you understand the urgency. But no matter how sad and angry I am, I do not want to believe that. Because if you really understood the situation and still kept on failing to act, then you would be evil, and that I refuse to believe. The popular idea of cutting our emissions in half in 10 years only gives us a 50% chance of staying below 1.5 degrees and the risk of setting off irreversible chain reactions beyond human control. 50% may be acceptable to you, but those numbers do not include tipping points, most feedback loops, additional warming hidden by toxic air pollution, or the aspects of equity and climate justice. They also rely on my generation sucking hundreds of billions of tons of your CO2 out of the air with technologies that barely exist. So a 50% risk is simply not acceptable to us, we who have to live with the consequences. To have a 67% chance of staying below a 1.5 degrees of global temperature rise, the best odds given by the IPCC, the world had 420 gigatons of CO2 left to emit back on January 1st, 2018. Today that figure is already down to less than 350 gigatons. How dare you pretend that this can be solved with just business as usual and some technical solutions? With today's emissions levels, that remaining CO2 budget will be entirely gone within less than 8.5 years. There will not be any solutions or plans presented in line with these figures here today, because these numbers are too uncomfortable and you are still not mature enough to tell it like it is. You are failing us. But the young people are starting to understand your betrayal. The eyes of all future generations are upon you. And if you choose to fail us, I say we will never forgive you. We will not let you get away with this. Right here, right now, is where we draw the line. The world is waking up, and change is coming whether you like it or not. Thank you.
Well, it's a very powerful video. Maybe you've seen it before. I've watched it a couple times already myself. She has a lot of information. She has a lot of passion around this. She says something really interesting, well, she says a number of things that are very interesting in her talk. But at one point she says, we will be watching you. What do you think Greta means when she says, we will be watching you?
I evidently think that she's probably talking about the fact that the younger generation, or the generation that we live in right now, like kids my age or your age, is like, we'll be watching what you're doing, we'll be seeing what's happening. We'll see this pollution, we'll see this horrible stuff that's happening, and this will evidently actually hurt our generation when we grow up. This will actually make things worse for us. She's probably prepared a speech because she knows what will happen later on when my generation is like grown up, that it will actually affect us.
Looking to the future, that's for sure. Quinn?
Right, so I have to agree with him. I think, I think it means more of what we like watching every mistake they make and thinking, how could we have done this better? Because I think a lot of politics are centered around money nowadays, and as Greta Thunberg says, people aren't just giving enough attention to the situation.
It's an interesting point that you both make, around what the priorities are and around money you mentioned. Do you think that a lot of people of your generation share some of the feelings that Greta mentioned, this feeling of sort of feeling betrayed or thinking? Zoe?
I think there's a lot of anxiety among the younger generations about the climate and the environment and just what's going to happen, and I think a lot of us feel like it's out of our grasp and there's not a lot we can do, because we kind of look up to the older generations and we don't have all the power or the resources, I guess, to really fix this problem. So I think there is a lot of anxiety around all the climate issues.
We can't do anything. It's like, if nobody cares about what's actually happening, we can't do anything. That's probably why my generation has anxiety about this. It's because we can't do anything. If they don't stop, we can't do anything about it. It's not us. It's not us that we need to change. It's not something that we can do. We can't do it. So it's like, we can't do anything if these people do not stop.
Interesting.
Yeah, I agree with that, because for example, flicking a light switch, that saves some power, right? But it doesn't do anything significant unless a lot of people are doing that, and a lot of people are lazy. We don't all want to do that, and we kind of need the power coming from politicians up there to help maybe remind people, we're missing power that we need, and people who have the power aren't doing anything about it, and that's the main problem here.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing when you think about it, because if individuals of your generation who may not have actual power, like to change laws or have the financial power and so on to actually do things, are not in those positions. But as Greta says, maybe the passion and alerting individuals who are older to, hey, look, if you don't stop doing what you're doing, then when my generation gets to be older, we're the ones who are going to have to bear the brunt of this issue.
Yeah, and like the only people who actually agree with her, like people of our generation or actual grown-ups who agree with her, they're not allowed, they don't have any power. They're not allowed to do anything. So it's important what she's doing because she gathers a group of people who think that we need to do this. And I actually agree with her because it's just impossible to do this if we don't have anybody on our side.
Yeah, she's created quite a movement. I mean, everyone all around the world knows who Greta is, and she started off very, very young. She used an interesting term in there, and maybe we can discuss this term. She talked about climate justice. Any thoughts on what climate justice is? Do you have a thought on this, Ryan?
Probably just like how like we need to all work on like fixing this climate change issue. It's not just like one person that has to do one small thing. Everyone has to like work together to figure this out.
Yeah, it's a challenging term, when working together is part of what justice is. Any other thoughts on what that term climate justice means?
I think
Quinn?
climate justice means giving the climate the attention it deserves, because we can all agree it doesn't get as much attention as it needs, or we wouldn't be here, talking about this, right?
Yeah.
I think a big part of climate justice, I guess, is treating the environment the way it deserves to be treated. I mean, so much of our resources come from the environment, and we've almost just mistreated that and abused it, and just like, I don't even know. I think we just need to treat the environment better, and I think that's what justice is.
I don't think we've mistreated it as much as we've actually destroyed it. Like, I agree with you, we have mistreated it, we have abused it, it's a horrible thing, but we've destroyed most of the things that we actually need to stay alive. And I think what Greta's saying is that if this generation doesn't do anything, we can't do anything about it. It's not our choice. It will destroy what we already have now. And what we have now is actually more little because it's actually smaller because we abuse it and we hurt it. And that's probably the main thing that we need to work on.
It's fascinating, this term climate justice. I mean, even here we've had such an interesting range of thoughts about it. They're all kind of centered around the same thing, working together and looking, addressing these sort of larger concerns and degrading the environment, even destroying the environment. So climate justice is a really interesting term, I think, that Greta uses. Moving a little bit more from Greta herself and the video, how has the threat of climate change affected any of you in this room personally? Have you seen any of these effects, or has it had an effect on you in your daily life or your family or your community or your school or city? Anyone? Zoe?
I think it's, well, like kind of what I said before, just a lot of anxiety and almost uncertainty and almost a feeling of like lack of hope around the future, and I guess just how things are gonna go. Like, do I want to bring kids up in this kind of world? Just a lot of uncertainty and anxiety about the future is what's really scary about this whole thing.
Affected maybe your mentality or emotions about as you think about the future and what it could be.
Yeah.
Could be about.
Like, I don't actually think it hasn't affected us yet. It hasn't affected us yet, but it's affected other people and it's affected other animals. As like what Quinn pointed out is when he gave that example with the light switch, we're using too much energy and it's destroying like the polar caps, and the animals that live there can't actually raise their babies. So it doesn't do anything to us yet. And I think that's probably the main reason that nobody actually wants to do anything about it, because they think that nothing's gonna happen. They think that nothing's gonna happen, like it's not gonna do anything whatsoever. But it's not happening right now. It hasn't been happening so far, but it will happen eventually, and it will most likely happen to my generation.
Yeah, so looking ahead again, sort of like what Zoe was talking about, projecting outward. Any other thoughts around how it's affected you personally?
So it hasn't. So there was a thing that happened. I think I was in 7th grade 2 years ago. We had all over the U.S. there were huge snowstorms. Do you guys remember that? A ton of snow. That was from something in the Arctic melting, and it's been screwing with the weather. So I think one of the main things about climate change that we've gotten used to, that I think has been affecting, is actually the weather around us. And I think there's been huge weather changes over the years. Yeah, that's just my thoughts.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on how it's affected you personally?
Yeah, I agree with Zoe how like everyone's like kind of uncertain about what to do. They're kind of confused and scared, and they're like they can't find anything to do because no one else wants to help with it, and they're scared because if we don't help with this, then it'll be bad in the future. So it's kind of just a cycle. Everyone's uncertain about what to do, which causes them to be scared, and then it just goes farther from there.
Yeah, I keep hearing the note a little bit like there could be some hopelessness, that there could be a sense that maybe there's nothing we can do about it. It's coming, down the road or many years from now, and getting worse right now as well. And we saw, even in this area, bad heat this summer, and bad snow in the past, and storms and fires in California. It just seems like it's all these different things are adding up. Are you guys, there can be hopelessness, but do you have any sense of hope for the future, that maybe we can turn things around? Zoe, I see you nodding.
Yeah, I think that a lot of kids and just younger people in general are being more politically and socially active, and I think people are coming together. It's more of a community now because things have been so polarizing and people have been really feeling that need for community, and I think that's going to help a lot with, obviously the environment and then other issues as well. And I think things have to get bad before they get worse. So I do have hope, even though it's surrounded by quite a bit of anxiety.
Yeah, I think I have most of my hope from Greta. Like, what she's doing is actually giving me hope. Like, the question is, like, if we don't do something now, what will happen in the future? Like, will our children's children be able to be raised, be able to live in this kind of world? Like, what will happen in the future if we don't do something now? And we don't have the power to do anything. I think that's what's the most horrible thing that we have right now. All the people that actually want to do something are not don't have that power. Like, all the people who want to do something, they don't get the right to. And I think that's what's most important. Like, Greta doesn't have, she's not she's not of the highest power. She's not like the president of any country. So what she's doing is incredibly powerful, and she's helping everybody out. But she doesn't just have the power to fix everything in just like one snap. It's like not easy. We don't have the actual power because we're not like everybody who wants to do something can.
Yeah, she has that voice, and maybe it can mobilize people. And one thing that you'd mentioned, Zoe, was maybe in this dire situation, one of the silver lining, or good aspects of it, at least it brings people together. Sometimes when there's a crisis, it can bring people together. Any feelings of hope for the future out of this situation?
I'm not much of an optimist, but I think it's always good to go into a situation with a good mindset, right? I think there's definitely hope that we can have a better future than now. And I think hearing Greta speaking like that and people knowing her name, despite like not her being a powerful politician, it's very empowering, and it's kind of heartwarming knowing that, like, hey, my voice can be heard too. Like, we're out there and we're putting our opinions out there, and there's hope for the future.
So she's inspired you as well. It sounds like, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think there is a lot of hope, because I think now there's a lot more people who have realized that this is a real problem. So I think with all those people, I think if we all work together and get all these politicians' attention on this issue, I think we can figure out a way to eventually stop this problem.
It's encouraging, because one response could be to just throw up your hands and say, well, there's nothing we can do, but to know that people, particularly of your generation, feel hopeful is good for all of us, I think, to hear. We can't all be Greta, of course. She's had this platform and this wonderful voice and has a lot of passion. But have any of you felt maybe inspired, or as you said, empowered, or feel encouraged at all to speak out in any way, whether it's at school or in your community or anything like that? Or if you haven't done it yet, have you thought about something you might do in that regard, Quinn?
So I haven't really spoke out to anyone in my community, because it's mainly because a lot of people in my community also support the idea of keeping the climate safe. So there's much to speak out about. I think a lot of people in my community they know about the crisis. They know what we can do to fix it. Yeah, so I think I've grown up in a good neighborhood.
Yeah, I agree with Quinn. Like, a lot of people are on this movement. They believe in this, but all the people of higher power don't want to do anything. Like, look at all the people in this room that are actually watching us right now, that are viewing right now. They agree with us. They believe in us. They believe in Greta, and they believe in what's happening. So we want to speak out. We want to get more. We want to get a higher power on our side, because we can't do anything just by ourselves. Just like we could have 1,000 people, but no president or no ruler actually wants to do anything.
Have any of you heard about any strategies or approaches that can be taken on a large level? I admit I don't know too much of the science about all this, but have any of you maybe in school or something heard about things like the world can do, whether it's politicians or scientists, to help address the climate change situation?
I'm not too knowledgeable on the exact sciences of it. I should be. But a lot of what I've heard is reducing all the carbon that we emit with airplanes, cars, all these things, limiting our power use, just things like those. But I think it's a lot more complicated than that, and I think we need a lot more interest in the actual science of it.
Yeah, because we actually do. The science of it, we don't know yet. We don't know what we have to do. We can't get all the scientists and be like, oh, hey, can you just fix this for us? No, because we need people to actually save power, to actually not just leave the lights on in the nighttime. Nobody's there. We need saving power is probably what we need to most do. It's what's destroying our economy right now. And we can't just we don't understand the science that much. So we can't just get it out just with one snap. We can't do that. We need multiple people.
Yeah, it's complex. There's no doubt about it. And people talk about this all the time. Some of you may have seen this conference they just had in Glasgow, a big World Climate Action conference and so on, and it's difficult because there's sometimes people feel there's not a lot of concrete things that governments have really agreed to do. I'm wondering though, have any of you thought of any concrete actions, one or two or three things maybe, that you could do in your own community to maybe help reverse some of the negative effects of climate change, whether it's something really small or something larger? I'd love to hear from each of you, if you have the thought on this, about this particular question. One or two or three things that you might be able to do on a personal level in your own community or neighborhood or school to help alleviate some of the problems of climate change.
Like, I think that we can do a lot, because like it's pretty amazing that Greta started this all by standing on the street side with a sign. And I think that if she can do that, then we can do little things and more little until we get one big thing.
Okay.
Like if you add a bead to another bead and another bead and then more, you will make this big necklace. And she made this by doing this one little thing. If we do another little thing, then another person will do another little thing, and we can keep going, and we get this big thing, which we actually need more than just the necklace.
It's a good point. Take small steps. Any others have any concrete things that you've done or you're thinking about doing?
Well, I mean, one of the most basic things, I guess, is just picking up trash wherever you see it. I think composting is a really good thing. I guess just like the simple things that I guess people ignore. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I agree with Zoe. I think picking up trash, helping the environment it helps too. So I think getting together with your community, just going around picking up trash, it works.
It's not an easy thing to solve. We sometimes look at the large situation in the world and it seems so dire, but we still have hope, and we still hope that politicians and scientists will listen. But it's also tricky sometimes to know what can we do in our own regular everyday lives. It seems like just flipping the switch, when you leave the room. Small, but maybe it helps out. Who knows for sure?
Yeah, like we need to do something. It might take some time, and by some time I mean it might take a long time. But some people, like of the higher power, they don't want to do this. They're all like, okay, well, if you just want to do this so bad, then just do this one thing, get it over with. We can't do that. Like, it's like tiny stepping stones. Either you take one jump, knowing that you might slip and fall, or you just put on boots and you walk through.
That's a good way of putting it. A good sort of hopeful analogy, I think I would say. Well, we looked at the video of Greta. We looked at the video of Greta and talked a little bit about that, and we sort of explored a little bit some of the things we may have seen in our own lives, our own neighborhood, and also some approaches we might even be able to take individually, our own feelings about what the future might hold. Are there any other thoughts anyone has about any of these topics we've kind of tried to explore? Being hopeful, what Greta has to say, what we might do individually. If anyone has anything they'd like to offer at this point, please do.
I think conversations like this help a lot, talking about it with your community locally, figuring out ways just to start small and I guess get bigger, get more people to realize what's going on, put more funding into science of what's going on, and just really working together to figure out what we can actually do to make big differences. Get politicians, I guess, to actually go for new laws to change things to make this better for us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that what we should most likely do is keep doing what we're doing now. Like talking about it and actually facing it. Like little things like doing this will lead to big things. Like, we're making this video and thousands of people are streaming and thousands of people are watching, thousands of people agree with us. So like, just picking up trash around your neighborhood with some gloves and a picker-upper, that actually helps a lot. Just turning off the switch at night, that helps a lot. Tiny things will lead to a big thing, which will lead to achieving victory.
Yeah, these small steps and remaining hopeful can all add up. It sounds like you guys have definitely taken Greta's message to heart, you know, and that's a powerful thing. The one person, you know, on the other side of the world spoke up, and her voice resonated with so many others around the world.
Right.
Yeah. Another thing we can do to help stop climate change is finding better sustainable energy, because one of the biggest things that I've heard about the most is the gas emissions from cars, because they're very damaging to the environment and they can cause a lot of bad things to happen. So one of the things that we could do is probably making more electric cars instead of gas cars. But also what I've heard a lot is, what do people do with the batteries from an electric car once they go away? So maybe with that we can find a better way to either reuse them after or find a way to safely dispose of them.
Yeah, you use the word sustainable energy. I don't know if that had come up earlier, but thanks for introducing that term. I mean, does anyone know of other forms of energy or other sorts of thinking or ways of looking at how we use energy that could help alleviate this problem? It's great that you brought up this one, because I know people are moving more to electric vehicles, you know, and thinking about that and moving away from it. Any other forms of sustainable energy that anyone's aware of that we've been contemplating?
I don't know about, I guess, sustainable energy specifically, but I guess just, I mean, going to like local farms, local shops, instead of these big companies that likely use a lot of energy and harmful things to the environment. Just shopping more locally, I think that can use energy in a better way.
Yeah, and you mentioned about local, you know, and that would cut down, I would assume, on transportation costs and, you know, using a lot of gas and so on. But again, this note you mentioned of maybe these little steps will add up. It can feel like we can't do anything about it, but maybe all the little steps add together, people will start to listen. That's definitely, I think, part of Greta's message, to be heard, be heard. Well, you guys, I really want to thank you for all the discussion and for taking this so seriously. You know, it's going to land with all of us sooner or later. I think we all know that. One way or another, we're going to have to address this, and hopefully we can address it sooner rather than later, before the problem gets so extreme or so dire that there's not a whole lot we can do to reverse the trends. So I want to thank Quinn and Ryan and Adib and Zoe for joining today, watching the video, and engaging in such a stimulating and interesting discussion. Really provokes a lot of thought. And I think we'll be showing this video in some forms in the future, not too long from now, and maybe we can even keep the discussion going once we show that video. So thank you very much, and thanks to everyone who joined us today as well as listened to this. And hopefully we will help to create a better future with the words we've shared today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was my pleasure. Of course.